At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Andrea, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Oh, I'm really excited. How many times have we gotten together?
This is number 3.
Number 3. All right. Because you've written a new book.
Yes.
All right.
Hard to see, but yeah.
Well, so yeah, and so for the folks that have not heard the first 2, share a little bit about who you are, your background, the 3 books that you've written, and obviously the last book that we're going to talk about, which is the 3rd book.
Yeah. So I am Andrea L. Wehlann, Wehlann. You can find me on all socials and things like that on Facebook, Instagram. I am a yoga studio owner, Ganga Moon Yoga, which is in Ontario, Canada. The first book I wrote is No Matter How Dark the Stain, Poems and Inspiration for the Woman in Pain, which basically means the dark parts of your life and the light are both love. That's book number 1. Book number 2 is Deeper Days, 365 yoga inspirations for inner calm amidst chaos. This book is how to stay connected from your head to your heart each day with a little spiritual practice. And then that led to my 3rd book, which we'll talk about today, Stillness in the Storm, a conscious daily journal of yoga and spiritual healing. So, yeah, that's about it for me. I love it, and hopefully there's something that you'll fall in love with about yoga or stillness from our conversation today.
So what motivated this 3rd book?
I found at first I didn't know that all my books were related, so I had a hard time publishing them because I was like, but they're not related. So like one's yoga, one's about stillness, one is poetry, and it took a long time for me to kind of get my head around, are they related? And I remember one of the publishers, a person that they worked with who was doing some editing, she said, but you're the author. So that's what makes them related. So I took some thought into that, and with a little bit of process, I started to come to realize that, wow, like these 3 books, me listening to that inner voice that I had inside and just following that, there really is some magic, because without doing the work of shining light on every experience that I ever had in life, which is the first book, No Matter How Dark the Stain, without doing that work, I would not have had the peace and calm in my mind to be able to hold my concentration and my thoughts, and to have a yoga practice, because they would have kept coming up. What happens if you don't take care of your childhood or trauma, and kind of shine light on it to transform it into something useful in your life, or to lessons and wisdom, then they keep arising. And so the 2nd book was really important because it made a lot of space in my mind for creativity, love, compassion, and for the new words, and even for me to be able to go into a deep state of stillness for a year. So it's been so interesting, right? So first it's like clearing that. If you look at it like a garden, it's like first you plant the seeds, and then you clear it all away. And this is what the 2nd book was, right? And then it makes room to plant new seeds. And I think our mind is like a garden all the time.
Yes. So for the audience, I want you to define yoga, because it's a little bit different than just going to your studio and doing bodily movements and so forth. Mm-hmm. Define what you mean by yoga, and let's talk about the roots of the yoga that you follow.
Mm-hmm. So how I define yoga is you have 4 energies in the body: spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. When you yoga, the word yog means unite. So yoga to me now is bringing two of those together. For instance, if you close your eyes and bring attention to your breath, you have yoked two of the energies together. That to me is yoga.
And is there a specific type of yoga philosophy that you follow?
Yeah, so you know what's happened, Doug, after all these years, I have embodied all of my teachings. So first, it was hatha yoga. So I had hatha yoga teachers for 8 years, classical yoga teacher from India for 8, and then Michael Stone, my Ashtanga Zen Buddhist teacher. So all of these years, I've been focusing on the hatha yoga. But I find after COVID, when people are coming back to classes, one, our attention span is so small. The consciousness has risen so much. People are finding it very hard to sit for a 90-minute yoga class. It's generally impossible. So my classes are now 60 minutes, but they're still where I used to see the body be really still. Now I see like fingers moving still. But it's like people need more, is what it tells me from reading the bodies in the room. And so I started to bring into the classes, I'll read a poem or I'll read a passage from Deeper Days first, because it helps us go inside the body a little bit more. And then I'll play the crystal singing bowls, so a little bit of sound therapy, sound vibration, which seems to help bring it down a little bit more. So as a yoga instructor, I'm taking in a few more things to relax the body, where previously 7 years ago, it wasn't like that. I could just speak, teach the poses, and people would be calm.
So when you talk about hatha yoga, that's from India, right? Is that a Hindu based type of yoga?
So it's from Patanjali, and it's based on the 8 limbs of yoga, which is what Deeper Days is about. I think you have the Deeper Days book. Yeah. So here's how it was explained to me, yoga, and I've always kept this kind of, you'll hear. So someone, when in my teachings, put it like this. So hatha yoga is like an umbrella. And underneath the umbrella, you have Ashtanga yoga, say power yoga, and all of these new things that are coming out. Hot yoga, Bikram, all of the other yogas. But it's all hatha yoga. It's all from Patanjali. It's all based on the 8 limbs of yoga. And I think when it first came here to the West and we all started to get a hold of it, it was a lot about the postures and yoga journal and bendy and twisty. And I'm finding myself, and I've been resonating with a couple other yoga teachers, we're starting to find that because the anxiety is up, the attention span is small, it's like the calmer the practice now is the best.
Well, and you know, I smile because you talk about, you know, cultivating inner calmness and self-discovery and so forth. And I smile because over the last couple of weeks, I have just become so frustrated with situations that have come up. Obviously, not speaking Thai and trying to help the people understand something that I need, or watching their culture and, you know, sometimes their work ethic and so forth. And I have found all of a sudden I'm just getting angry and getting frustrated. And I thought, oh boy, I can't wait to talk to you because you can tell me how to redevelop that inner calm. So what I'd love for you to do is share with the audience, how did you develop that inner calm? And as you said, it took years, but how have you been able to develop that self-discovery, that inner calmness that I think so many of us at one point in time or another experienced just the opposite? And by the way, I started doing some meditating again, and that's helped. But go ahead and share with the audience, what was your experience? Why did you need that? And what are some of the things that you've gone through and practiced in order to develop that sense of peace and inner calmness?
You know, it's, you have to go inward. You have to be able to see that when you come up to those kind of tough emotions and those walls, that you have to see it as a way in, that you've risen and it's a new time for you to go inside. And it sucks and it's hard and there's resistance in the mind because it's like, oh my gosh, not more inner work. Yes, more inner work, because there's more inside, and that's where you find the calm and the peace. So I really have to look at that there's nothing on the outside. There's nowhere to get to, and we're already here. And so when I had, my best friend leave for like just out of my life, I had the man I was seeing that I was totally in love with, that had the deepest connection of my life with, left at the same time. I think they were both gone within the same week. So yes, I have yoga and meditation background, but I really had to ask myself, I think I took it hard for about a week. And then for me, I have been on this mission of going into the self to share it with other people. So I was like, okay, I have two options. I can fight this, or I can let go of the shore and see where the universe takes me. And so I just dove deep into that stillness, just turning the phone off, not having any word with anybody, not sharing how I was feeling with anybody. And there's no one to fix me, no one to bounce off my thoughts, no one to hear me cry. This is what happens when you go into stillness, not having the comfort that somebody's going to come here and make it better. So I think that we have the practices that we do. So I know for you, you have deeper days, you have your practices, but it's like then life hits you and you're like, you have the choice. You can stay in the anger and the feelings that come up, or whichever the feeling is for the situation. I just said anger because you mentioned it. So you can stay in that, which is eventually going to move anyway, or you have the chance to now pull in all of the new techniques you've had up to this day, whatever that may be in your life, and really hone into those and see what happens. So for me, I knew I had a Zen practice. I've always heard of stillness. I had a meditation practice. And I was like, okay, listen, they're all gone. I'm not fighting anything. This happened for a reason, right? Mentally had to tell myself. I was like, that's fine. I'm going to go into a year of stillness. And that's what I did. So I think for other people, when you come up to those, try to see those anger, hurt, rejection, betrayal. Try and see those as a way in. Not to look at those like something happened to me, but did it happen for you?
Well, and I love the saying, man is that he might have joy. And I really believe that. And, it is so interesting that how many people, number one, understand that that's a truism. And yet, when they're not experiencing that in their life, when they're not experiencing that peace, that calmness, and so forth, they don't realize that they actually have the control to either stay in it, they can choose to do that, or as you're talking about, start to work on some inner practices and so forth. And sometimes they need some help with that to the point where they can then start to sense that inner calmness again. Now, you divide things into three different areas: mind, body, and spirit. Okay. I'd like you to talk about each one of those briefly, and then we'll talk about each one of those a little bit more in depth.
Okay. So the mind, if I can say one thing, it's okay. What I learned when I had my Zen Buddhist teacher at the very end of my Hatha teacher, classical yoga teacher, at the end of NLP, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Zen meditation. Then I met this teacher. And okay. And what I learned was that Buddhism is really a science of how your mind works. And I was like, what? Because society would tell me, like, my Catholic side was like, you can't go there. There's a Buddha, like it's worshiping this God. And it is not like that. I didn't learn anything like that. What I learned was my mind is a trickster, and it lies. And I learned that, if you really have to control your mind. You really have to control your mind. What I teach now in my class, when people are laying down and I'm teaching yoga, I will say to them, if your mind is wandering off, that's its natural nature. That's what the mind does. So that's the mind. The body holds on to everything, and it's always present. Your body is always there. It's the mind that we have to wrangle in. And the spirit, I think, is that gentle inner intelligence that we all have regardless. Because when you're quiet and when you're still and you have your body and your mind and you're present, like say present moment, that's where you hear the spirit. And in Zen Buddhist meditation, there's a meditation called Vipassana, and it literally means insight. And there's an insight, a spirit in all of us. When we were babies, now we grew into being now like our bodies look how we are. Why? That's our inner intelligence. A lemon seed turns into a lemon tree. Why? That's it. That's what it does. It can't grow in. The lemon seed cannot grow into a mango tree. So there's something inside of us.
Yes, yes. So you mentioned something and it just kind of hit me. You've been looking and studying the Zen Buddhism, okay, and I appreciate that. And yet you have a Catholicism background. And I think for a lot of people that they avoid certain things like Buddhism because they feel like it's conflicting with whatever faith, experience, religion that they happen to be a part of, and mainly, obviously, Christianity in many cases. So how do you work through that and recognize that here's Buddhism, which offers so much insight to the individual of how to gain this sense of peace and calmness, remove that suffering, and someone's faith in a religious sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always been a seeker. And when things happen to me, I want peace. I want to figure it out, and I want peace for myself. So, I mean, at some point of your life, you have to break through the walls of whatever stories people have put on you, and you need to make your own stories. You have to blaze your own trail is something that I used to repeat to myself a lot. I was raised Catholic, and then in university, a horrible thing happened to me with gang rape and being left for dead. And I'll tell you, I crawled to the Catholic Church up the road and just left my whole soul on a pew, like something. And I wrote prayers for 2 years. And then something else happened. I mean, my car was stolen. I was sexually assaulted in a workplace. And I was so scared. And I was like, oh my God, like there's got to be something more. And it was there that I found the book, A Course in Miracles. I packed everything in my trunk, drove as far as I could, and then grabbed a telephone book and started a new life in a new place. And I found metaphysics. And I started to study metaphysics and got deep into that. And then a couple of years after, which I loved, it changed all of my thoughts from fear into thoughts of love with a daily practice. And then I joined the Theosophical Society. see this hunger in me, the seeking, the searching. I never.
Yes.
Then I studied all of the religions, but I never came to Zen Buddhism yet. And I was like, okay. But I'm so glad I did, because it's kind of like at the end of studying all of them, then there was this teacher, this man that woke me up, Michael Stone. He has brilliant books. He woke me up, sense of humor, and he was just like, control your mind. He said the mind is like a puppy. You control a puppy. When you bring a puppy home, you don't let it run all over the house. He said, why, Andrea, are you letting your mind run all over? You have to tell your mind no. And I was like, he's not wrong. Shit. Okay, there's this whole other thing here. So this is kind of my favorite thing that I've taken on, because so teaching yoga in yoga with Patanjali, we were talking about with the 8 limbs of yoga, it's called monkey brain. And so they work in the classes to control the monkey mind. But there's not, yeah. And then in Buddhism, it tells you have to control your mind. And like little things like this, just as an example, you'll probably understand. So why, when we hear something negative, do we spend so much time on it? The negativity tends to take up the whole day. That's on the left side. Because we're thinking about it. It's logical. We're thinking about it and all, and then that's where all the attention goes. Where if we sing a song or do art, it's the right side, and then it's gone. Okay, so bring that to like, why do I keep thinking about this one thing when I have all this good stuff? Because that's how your mind works. That's why it's not you. It's just the function of your mind. So if you can know that your mind functions that way, it can cause less suffering. And here's the yoga about staying on the middle path, but using your mind to understand how your brain is working. Okay, I know that my brain will naturally keep thinking about this, but you have to take it as that's its function. It's not who you are. You are more than your thoughts, and you are more than you think you are. And this is why the mind is so limited. And it can only repeat the things that have already happened. Your mind can't tell you about next week. It can't. It's not happened, but it can tell you all the bad things you did in your life, little bugger. Bugger, not you, Doug, but little bugger being, it's the mind.
It's so funny that we tend to avoid some of these things. And yet, as you say, to be able to use a philosophy such as Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. I'm not sure I understand the difference between regular Buddhism and Zen Buddhism.
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain that in a bit. But to be able to use that to really control the mind doesn't mean that we've lost the ability to believe in other directions. It just means that we have found a philosophy that we can personally take responsibility for, to control our minds, to find that sense of inner peace, to find that self-discovery, which I want to talk a little bit more about that, and literally to be able to start to enjoy life, find peace, find joy, all of those types of things. So just out of curiosity, real quick, what is the difference between Zen Buddhism and the other types of Buddhisms?
Yeah, I didn't know there was more than one. I was like, oh, it's just Buddhism. So in Niagara Falls, there's a temple of 10,000 Buddhas. And I went in and I was like, oh, there's 10,000 Buddhas in here? And they're like, yeah, it's very Chinese. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is, because I everything was Chinese in there and I didn't study it. All I know is that there's Zen, and there is Zen, like, so Tibet, Thich Nhat Hanh, Dalai Lama, and even that's split into two. There's a Mahayana and the Tara. I'm going to mess up that word, so I'll leave it. Yes, I'll leave that word, but it's kind of split into two, the origin. And then the Chinese have a whole different version. So that's where you see the chubby Buddhas, the laughing Buddhas. Those are the Chinese ones. And the Zen ones, you'll notice like the length of the ears. The longer the ear is, the more wisdom that they hold. Yeah. So for me, I like the mind. My degree is psychology. So I just take it as it's a science of the mind. So whether it's called Zen Buddhism or Chinese Buddhism, what I'm interested in is how is my mind working? How can I get my mind on my side? How many lies has it told me? What are the patterns of my thinking? Because when you can control the patterns of your thinking or notice the patterns of your mind that you get from sitting still, you'll see this, then and my wish for us, everybody, is to use the mind to be on your side.
Well, and it's fascinating. Here, you've gone through years and years of self-discovery. Obviously, your life experiences, which have been horrendous, if anyone were to even think about it, and yet you have used that as a motivator to start to develop that inner peace. To, as you say, you just have studied and studied and studied that curiosity to the point where you've been able to develop that for yourself personally, and now you're teaching others. But
Mm-hmm.
most have not experienced that. Most do not know how to do that. And so if you were working with someone that came to you and
Mm-hmm.
said, look, I'm not experiencing peace. I'm not experiencing calmness. And
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, I hate my life. How do you help them other than just yoga, which, for many people, such as myself, I can't get into those poses anymore. So how would you help someone that is listening right now and thinking, you know what, that's me. I'm I'm not happy with my life. I'm not happy with what's going on. I want to change. I want to go through that self-discovery. I want to find that sense of peace and calmness. How would you help them?
Mm-hmm. I'd say I've been where you are. I see you. I know exactly where you are. And I take their hand or give them a hug and say, here, let me help walk you home to yourself. Yeah, there's some little bit of work that needs to be done. First, people just want to be seen, and you don't have to be seen by a million people. For me, it was just my Zen Buddhist teacher. He's like, "I see you," and he did, and I'm awake because of him. Because I fell asleep in my life and got lost in things, and more shit happened. But he saw me, and I learned with him. It only takes one person to see you. I think the main thing is you have to start where you are. Like I see you, I've been exactly in that spot, and all of my horrendous things is what gives me that. So when anybody walks through my door, Doug, I know exactly where they are. There you are. I see you. I've been where you are. Here, come with me. And yoga is not about the poses. I don't know who's doing the poses anymore, really. The yoga teachers I'm hanging around, we're all doing restorative yoga. We're all laying down on pillows because people need to heal. I haven't been to a yoga class where we're standing up and twisting ourselves anymore. I think we're past it. I think it's
So,
important. If you can't quiet your mind, you do these things and then you can rest deeply. But this is about the nervous system, the attack on the nervous system. But for that person, the first thing I would do is write out with her, write out your pain for me. Let me see it. Put it on paper. Because there is a power and a force when you write things down that is unbeatable, immediate, and you have power and control in that moment. And in Stillness in the Storm, that's why this journal has some pages where you can just write. And there's pages just with a little prompt, so you know I'm there with you. There's a prompt. What's this one? What's this one? No one on the outside can ever get to me those things.
say that again. I can't hear you. Say that again.
Yes, my eyes. I think I need glasses. Oh my God. No one on the outside can ever give to me those things are more than things. I am born with all I need. And the whole page is blank for writing things in. That's the first thing I would do with someone that called me that needed help. We would write that stuff down. It's so important, Doug. Do you know why? Because if it's not written down on paper, it ruminates in the mind. Remember the function of the mind? is just to go like this, around and around. And especially in fall, it's called the season of Vata here in Canada, where the wind picks up outside, so do the thoughts in our mind pick up. So there's a very specific practice for that. There's one on my YouTube channel. You could check out after, but it's just how do we anchor that attention? And we do it by focusing on the breath and writing things down.
Well, and you know, you're not the first that has emphasized journaling. And I've always struggled with journaling. I just have.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
because that's what it is. It's because it shows you who you are and you can't escape it.
yeah.
And so there's so much comfort, and maybe we're addicted to comfort or addicted to the pain, emotional addiction, maybe. I'm starting to realize for myself in some places, we get addicted to those feelings that they're not, comfort zone.
Well, and so you have the journaling, which you really recommend, and I think that's a fantastic idea. Like I say, I've heard that from many people saying how valuable that is. And then I sit and smile. I'm thinking about going to your yoga class and lying down on a pillow for my head and thinking, okay, what are you doing there to create that sense of peace? And you talked a little bit about the bowls and the sound that comes out of there, the vibration that comes out of there. And I know for me, I listen a lot to solfeggio meditation, and there's different levels depending on what you're trying to achieve. But share with the audience how important it is to go through that process of, I would say, meditation, but meditation with perhaps some external sounds or whatever that happens to be. And how does that help them to start to feel that sense of peace and calmness?
Sometimes it takes more than one thing. Like to get inside the mind, we have meditation, but it doesn't work for everybody, especially if you have trauma. People with a lot of trauma can't close their eyes. They find that really, really hard. And so we have stories that we can tell. We have poetry that we can say. And we have the vibration of the singing bowls. So that's what I'm offering is a combination now to really go deep, because we don't have the 50 years to explore and climb mountaintops of Tibet to find things. And we don't need to, because our consciousness is lifted. We need to heal these old things, release these emotional burdens now, because we can. The singing bowls at the lip. So I have crystal ones. And again, on my YouTube channel, Andrea L. Wehlann, Wehlann, because it's tricky to spell.
I know.
There's a 7-minute crystal singing bowls. You don't have to watch the video, but just play it with your eyes closed. So the lip of every singing bowl is tuned. So I have they're tuned to the 7 chakras in the body, the 7 energy centers in the body. And so when you play the singing bowls, they make a vibration. The vibration, much like the sun, doesn't stop at the outside of your skin. And it's like, I'm not going in there. No, the vibrations from the singing bowl go through your body. And much like, I always put it like, when you dig for gold, you have the thing, sifter, right? And you pull it and then you shake it around, and then just the gold remains. So the vibrations go into the body, sift around like this, and anything it clears the passageways in the body, opens up new space in the body. And remember, your body is always going back to homeostasis. The body wants to heal. So coming to yoga, making time to go to a workshop for crystal singing bowls, or going for a sound bath or a class that has both combined, this is what you're doing. You're creating conditions for your body to heal. And the vibrations go in and take out whatever's left. They don't need names. This is just nature. Do you know that we used to heal people from sound baths? From sound? Yeah. I know you and I both have a passion for those videos. Well, I was able to have it on last night. But this is what's happening. It's the vibrations. Even us talking, this is a voice box here. Like the words, if you feel it, is just vibrations. We are vibrations.
Well, an interesting story, and we're getting a little echo here, but and I share this. I hope my son will forgive me. But years ago, my son and his wife lost their first child prior to even being born. Okay, it was so traumatic for them, and in many cases, it was really the fact that some people were not paying attention in the hospital, and it just devastated my son. And a number of years was just, you could tell it was just so bad. And one day, a friend of mine who happened to use the crystal bowls called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to go up to this little city up here about 30 minutes away, and there's a cave, built-in cave with water in it that people are going to get in and just relax. And I'm going to use the singing bowls." And so I called my son and I said, "Hey, why don't you come with me?" And he says, "Okay." And he was always open to new things. So we went up there, and we were just lying in the water, and she was doing the singing bowls. And at the end, my son looked at me and goes, "Dad, the pain's gone. The pain's gone." And it was so amazing to hear him say that and to recognize that here's something that people don't even really understand. They make fun of, or they just poo-poo it. And yet here was something that healed my son and those deep, deep felt emotions of pain and loss because of those singing bowls while we were laying in the water. And I think people don't really understand and recognize that, there are modalities out there. And as you say, you've got the yoga, you've got the singing bowls, you've got all these other things. There are modalities out there that if people will experience them and try them, and not everything works for everybody, but keep searching that out. And for you, ultimately, it was that Zen Buddhism. And everybody's different, but for them to be able to seek that out with this distinct purpose of wanting to feel that healing, wanting to feel that calmness in their lives, it can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love your son's that you said about your son that he had just that attitude of always wanting to try new things. Yeah, because that is impetus for getting out there and keep moving. And I had that too. I was always searching who's my next teacher who can teach me something else.
Well, and this sense of curiosity, I think, becomes so vital that, and I think people need to overcome that fear of the unknown and say to themselves, "Okay, you know what? I'm not happy where I'm at. I want to figure this out." And obviously, having people like you helping them is fantastic. But to have that curiosity to start researching it and say, "All right, what's going to work for me? I'm going to try this. Oh, it didn't work. Well, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to try this and see how that works." And I think that as we go through that process, all of a sudden, as you said, we refine that down to a point where it's like, "Okay, this is working for me. And if I'll just keep doing it." And when they do, all of a sudden they start to feel that sense of calmness, that sense of peace, that sense of joy in their lives.
Yeah, the universe will meet you. Yeah. So it's really about, yes, I'm in pain. So a little bit of that, but then being willing to try something new. And that curiosity that's how we're born. We're born with curiosity. If you look at a child play, they're curious about everything, right? And so, what's as an adult, and when things happen, we still have that. And it's harder, but we have to keep going and kind of, that's where we came back to the very beginning, is kind of take where you are and whatever it is. So if you're in pain or if you're angry, like that's the start. Try and see that as the start, mash that with your curiosity and see where you can go.
Yes.
Because then the universe will come and meet you. You'll see the sound bath blast. Maybe you'll call me for help and see. Maybe it's a book, right? That's why the books are out there to help people.
Well, and you shared so many incredible thoughts, but as time has gone by now, I'd love for you to kind of share a final thought with the audience that you'd like them to understand.
Yeah. So I'll talk about stillness and I'll talk about silence. If you are feeling alone or if you physically are alone, just try to embrace the stillness that there's no one to distract you, there's no one to fix you, but nobody's coming anyway. And you can fix and you can heal yourself. There is strength to be able to carry your own spirit. And there's also a beauty in not being pulled in other directions. Turn toward the silence, turn toward the emptiness, and learn to hold yourself together without the comfort of external things. You can handle hard things, and there's greatness within you. And I believe in you. So thank you.
Love it, love it. Andrea, thanks so much. It's always so wonderful to have you on the show. I love it. Our conversations are so fun.
Well, I'm working on book 4, so I'll let you know when that comes up.
Okay. So again, how do people find you and how do they find your books?
Yeah, so you can find my books on Amazon.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Find me under Gangamoon Yoga, Gangamoon Yoga in Beansville. Everything will come up with my name, or type in Andrea L. Wehlann. Just even a Google search will take you to all of my accounts. Just the last name is tricky to spell. It's Wehlann.
All right. Well, Andrea, thanks so much. And folks, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion because it's just really been fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Hope you'll join us again soon. Have a wonderful week. And as normal, namaste.
Namaste.